911, where's your emergency?
GSDOT 711.
What's the address there?
I don't know the address, but someone is on fire laying inside.
Excuse me?
Someone is on fire laying inside.
You know the address.
It is 1121 GSDOT.
Someone's on fire?
Yes, someone is laying on the floor inside on fire.
As soon as this 911 call was placed, first responders were dispatched to the 7-Eleven in Punta Gorda, Florida, where the fire was reported. By the time police arrived, firefighters had already put out the fire and told officers what they'd found. They said that when they first got there, the store was dark and filled with fire and smoke. At first, they thought that this could have been some sick prank, given that it was Halloween night. But when they put out the fire and let the smoke clear, they realized that this was no joke. Firefighters tell police that they discovered a deceased male victim inside, with severe burns all over his body. Police figured that this had to have been some type of freak accident. The officers walked around the building and entered through the back door, where the storage area was located. As they made their way inside, they found the deceased man lying in a pool of blood right by the front counter. He was clearly a store employee, still wearing his uniform, but things weren't really adding up to police. The damage to the store wasn't very significant, at least not enough to block the worker from exiting the store during the fire. And it was odd that a victim of a fire had so much blood loss. But as officers got closer to the body, they made a shocking discovery, and it all started to make sense. The victim had at least one gunshot wound in his head. This was no accident. Homicide detectives were dispatched, and by the time they arrived, they ran into another 7-Eleven employee who had arrived earlier to pick up her shift. The employee identifies the victim as 18-year-old Kyle Ferration. Kyle lived just minutes away from the store and had just recently started his job at 7-Eleven. His family describes him as well-mannered and always having a positive outlook. Kyle loved to laugh and have fun. He had a tight bond with his family and was especially close with his younger sister, Keston, since they were young. When his parents divorced, Kyle ended up living with his father in Punta Gorda, but would take the 50-mile trip to his mother's house every weekend to spend time with her and his sister. Not too long after he moved in with his father, Kyle landed his job at 7-Eleven and told everyone how excited he was. He was a little shy and was happy about the fact that he'd get to work night shifts so he wouldn't have to deal with people too much. He'd just finished his training, and this was one of his first shifts working alone. Kyle was just starting the next phase of his life and was looking forward to his future. On Halloween night, he arrived at 7-Eleven at 10 p.m. to start his night shift. By 3 a.m., he was shot dead, and his body was set on fire. Detectives needed to find out who could have done this to him and why. The other employee who had just arrived at the store tells detectives that when she pulled into the lot, she saw the fire and tried calling Kyle, but he wasn't picking up. She says that she started dialing 911, then heard sirens approaching and figured that someone must have already reported it. The employee then mentioned something else to police, giving them their first lead. She says that as she pulled into the parking lot, she saw an SUV pulling out and described the driver as a white female who was on her phone. Detectives believe that whoever this person was must have placed the 911 call, but they found it odd that she happened to be there at 3 a.m. just when the fire was started and chose to leave the scene while still on the phone with police. As officers track down the caller, detectives continue combing through the scene to see if they could find some more clues. The fire damage was confined to the front of the store where the victim was, indicating that an accelerant was likely used. There was also significant smoke damage and water damage from when the fire was extinguished. Police noticed a few surveillance cameras throughout the store. Luckily, the DVR wasn't near the fire, and detectives took the hard drive back to the station to try and retrieve the footage, hoping that whatever happened that night was recorded. The first camera overlooks the area where Kyle's body was found. Officers start the footage at around 3 a.m., just before the 911 call was placed. Kyle can be seen working in the back of the store and going about his business when suddenly, something seems to catch his attention. He walks around the counter and heads over to the main aisle, right by the entrance. When he sees that nobody's there, he starts walking back as he looks through each aisle. As soon as he reaches the third aisle, someone jumps out at him, aims a gun at his face, and fires a round into his head. Kyle drops to the floor, and the suspect shoots him in his head again. As the suspect turns, they look to be carrying something in their hand. It's a large gas can. They start pouring the gasoline on Kyle and over the front counter. The suspect then walks over to the register, takes a lighter from the rack, and lights the gasoline on fire before fleeing the scene. This was nothing less than a planned execution. The suspect never attempted to steal anything. They just walked in, murdered Kyle, lit his body on fire, then left. Police need to find out who was behind this and why. Detectives look over the footage again to see if they could get a better image of the suspect. But the camera quality isn't very good, and the suspect is wearing a mask over their face. They switch to a different camera. The quality on this one is a little better, and it also recorded audio. It's now clear what caught Kyle's attention. When the suspect entered the store, a bell rang, alerting him that someone had just walked in. The camera was set to start recording after it sensed movement, so it didn't capture the suspect actually entering the store. Kyle walks up and doesn't see anyone there, so he walks back, and that's when the 2 gunshots can be heard. When the suspect enters the frame, detectives get a better look at them. They're wearing ankle-high boots, dark camouflage pants, a dark hoodie, and a mask. The suspect looks very skinny, even with the clothes they were wearing. At some point, they take off one of their gloves to flick the lighter. Police now know that they're after a white suspect of average height with slim build, but it still isn't clear whether they were a male or female. Detectives switched to the last camera, which points down at the counter, and carefully looked through the footage, frame by frame. They catch something. Just before the suspect starts pouring the gasoline, they put down their gun on the floor. It's a black revolver. Using the tiles as a guide, police conclude that it's a long barrel revolver. Police now need to track this person down and find out why they executed Kyle. The person who placed the 911 call was identified as a woman by the name of Chelsea. She tells officers that she was with her boyfriend when she placed the call that night. Police bring them both in and place them in separate rooms to be questioned. They need to find out why they left the scene after reportedly seeing someone on fire in the store and decided not to stick around.
So I went to go get cigarettes last night, about 3 in the morning, and I pulled into 7-Eleven, and I saw the lights were off inside, and I saw the person laying there was on fire, and there was like blood around them.
Chelsea says that her boyfriend was in the passenger seat when she pulled into the parking lot, and that he told her he saw someone laying on the floor inside who was on fire. He also told her that he saw blood on the floor and figured that someone had probably shot him before setting him on fire.
Why didn't you just stay?
At the store at the time, because I didn't know if he was still there, because it looked like the fire had just started, and my boyfriend was saying, go, 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 go. So I was like, hey, I'm panicking.
Chelsea's story is plausible, but it isn't uncommon for criminals to report their own crimes in order to divert suspicion away from themselves.
Do you have any idea what happened?
I have no idea.
Or how it happened? Anything like
I
that?
have no idea.
Detectives speak to Chelsea's boyfriend Alex to see if his story matches hers.
Perjury is a serious crime. You understand what I've explained to you about perjury? Yes, sir. Start from the beginning. What exactly?
Okay, so I got off work about 9 o'clock. Went back home from work, she and us were pulling up. We could see it's dark, right? And we ended up just like, whatever. And then she said it's on fire. And as we got closer pulling in, you could see it was blazing. And then she pulled up right in front of the door. I got out of the car and we just looked. And that's when I could see a kid in front of the counter.
But my boyfriend said that he saw fire on the counter, like someone poured gasoline on the counter.
Why didn't you wait for the officers? Why did you leave?
Dan was kind of freaky, dude. I mean, the place was on fire,
Okay.
Dude, like I said, we came back. I'm telling you,
I'm not, I'm just asking.
I'm trying to explain to you the best I can, man.
While speaking with Alex, one of the officers notices something. As Alex rolls up his sleeves, a large tattoo can be seen covering his right hand. The officer remembers seeing the suspect's hand on the surveillance footage and steps out of the room to look over the video. When the suspect removes his glove, it's clear that he does not have a tattoo on his hand. Alex is ruled out as a suspect, and police shift their focus to Chelsea.
Why did you stick around?
It looked like it had just started, and I was like, so just go. He's like, the person might be here still.
She tells detectives that when she pulled into the parking lot, the store was already on fire. Detectives review the footage again, looking to see if her car was captured on camera. At 3:13 a.m., the suspect flees the scene, and just 2 minutes later, a car can be seen pulling into the parking lot and pulling up to the front of the store before pulling away. This confirmed Chelsea's story, and she was also ruled out as a suspect. The only lead police had turned out to be a dead end. Over the next few days, detectives drove around the neighborhood where the 7-Eleven was located, looking for witnesses or any other cameras that may have captured something, but they had no luck. Desperate for a lead, detectives interviewed all the other 7-Eleven employees, asking about any incidents that may have happened at the store recently. A manager recalled an incident when a customer caused a disturbance while she was training Kyle at the register. Detectives went back to the footage to see what happened. The customer places a case of beer on the counter and is asked to show his ID. He pulls out his wallet, opens it, and shows her his license. He's then asked to take it out of his wallet, but refuses, and the manager refuses to sell him the beer. As she puts the beer back in the fridge, the customer starts becoming irritated and argues with her, then storms out of the store.
I'm not going to sell you the beer immediately. You want anything? Right here, you're fired. I come here almost every day. My name is Lori. Lori? Yes, the manager's name is Vicky. Ruby. Okay. Have a great day.
When the manager follows him outside to take a photo of his license plate, he starts getting angry and follows her back inside.
Call the police. Get away from me. You want to call the police? Yeah, you're harassing me.
The manager orders Kyle to call the police, which he does.
Call the police. 111 right now. On the phone. Look at the manager's eyes.
When they arrive, the manager gives them the customer's plate number. The customer is identified as Michael Russo. Just a few days after the first incident, that same manager was working with a different employee when she sees Michael Russo walking into the store. He walks up to the counter with a case of beer.
No, he's barred from here.
The manager refuses to sell it to him, but the clerk rings him up anyway.
Maria, I'm not telling you. Trespassing.
No, you are trespassing. You're fired.
The manager follows him outside as she calls the police. In the parking lot, it looks like Michael Russo threatens her with his car, almost hitting her as he aggressively pulls out. When police arrive a few minutes later, she tells them what happened and says that she wants him trespassed. Officers later tracked Michael down and went to his house, which was just around the corner from the store. He was warned that if he returns to the store at any time over the next year, he will be arrested on site. Police now have a suspect and a motive: revenge. Detectives compared the footage of Michael Russo with the footage of the murder suspect. They both have a slim build, and their movements and mannerisms are very similar. Most striking was the way Russo walks out of the store. It's almost identical to the way the suspect walked out after carrying out his crimes. Based on all this information, detectives were able to obtain warrants to search his home. When police executed the warrants, they couldn't locate the revolver, but they did find some damning evidence. Throughout his home was a large cache of weapons and ammo, which included several cases of ammunition in a gun safe, a semi-automatic pistol with a loaded magazine on his nightstand, and a fully loaded AR-15 assault rifle sitting up against a wall in his bathroom. They also found a box of latex gloves that looked like it had just been opened. The gloves were the same color as the ones the suspect used. When they entered his garage, they found some more crucial evidence: 8 large gas cans. They were the same type, color, and size as the one used in the murder. Officers then started searching his vehicle and found something interesting. When they opened the car door, they smelled a strong odor of bleach. On one of the doors, they could see what looked like a blood stain. A sample of the stain was collected, along with the rest of the evidence they found. They sent everything to a lab for testing, and about a week later, they received some bad news. The stain found in Russo's car did not contain Kyle's DNA, and despite the gas cans looking identical to the one the suspect had, there was no way to prove that any of them were the one used in the murder. If police don't find any more evidence, their case against Russo won't hold up in court. Detectives combed through all the evidence and carefully reviewed the footage hundreds of times, hoping to catch something they've missed. As they looked over the evidence photos, they spotted something. On one of the gas cans, they find what appears to be some dried paint on the handle. It happened to be on the one with the nozzle, which was likely the one Michael Russo had used to light the fire. Detectives looked through the footage once again, frame by frame, and with great relief, they found what they were looking for. It appears to be a white spot on the same part of the handle as the one found in Russo's garage. At this point, police feel that they have enough evidence and place Michael Russo under arrest for second-degree murder. At his trial, prosecutors reconstructed the events leading up to the murder. Upset by the way the 7-Eleven manager treated him and for being threatened with an arrest, Russo holds a grudge and decides to exact revenge. He chose Halloween night to go and kill whoever happened to be working at the time, and then burn the place down. Knowing that the store had cameras, he put on a mask and gloves, grabbed his revolver and a can of gas, then walked over to the store, which was just around the corner from his house. It just so happened that Kyle was working that night. The way Russo took him by surprise, Kyle didn't stand a chance and was shot dead. After shooting him a second time, he pours the gasoline and lights it, then flees the scene and runs back home. Michael Russo pleaded not guilty and took his case to trial. The state, however, made their case to the jury and presented a strong set of circumstantial evidence. He was ultimately found guilty of second-degree murder and arson and was sentenced to life in prison plus 30 years. Michael Russo is currently housed in Lake City Correctional Facility in Florida, where he will remain for the rest of his life.